Sponsored by Taylor Freelance, Rainier Ballistics, Hodgson Powders, and JPL Precision.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Power Factor. Today we are going to review the MEC 300E portable trap. Now, interesting story on this. During the earlier episode that we had done on the clay target machines here that we use for sporting clays here at Granite Falls, we mentioned during the episode that if anybody associated with MEC was interested in us having do a side-by-side comparison with the Promatic, we'd be more than happy to do it. Well, lo and behold, Nikki at MEC ended up contacting us and asking us if we were interested in doing that, and said yes, we definitely are.
Indeed.
And was contacted by Mickey and Simon and got a machine out here. So we are testing out the 300E. And Dave, you were mentioning before that you didn't think in terms of a comparable machine relative to the...
Having gone through the specifications of the MECs, as we've been looking at those for the club, that really the 306 I would have thought would have been what they would have tried to put up against the Ranger, and kind of what I was anticipating. So when they said the 300E, which is kind of their small club baseline machine, it's like, okay, we'll see how this plays. But I had to rethink right after we got our hands on it, because there's a very fine clay slinger here in town, and we're very favorably impressed. With both of these machines, let me stress that they are awesome machines that do such a wide variety, and they are very similar, as even a casual glance will indicate, but there are some differences in manufacturing philosophies between MEC and Promatic and how they're producing their machines. And they're both great machines that would serve any club well.
Yeah, and also I think maybe the reason why they sent the 300E also is that the bird capacity of the Ranger is 300 and the bird capacity of the 300E is also 300
Well,
birds.
but the 306 is the same thing.
Okay, is it? Okay.
The difference between the 306 and the 300E as far as capacity is virtually identical.
Right.
The 306 is an aluminum frame machine. The 300E is a steel frame machine, as is the Ranger that we're comparing it to.
Right.
So, I mean, MEC's choice of putting this one forth as their comparable machine was really a good choice on their part.
And the other difference is that the E series has a 3-year warranty and the XP series has a 5-year warranty.
Yes,
but from what basically, other than the frame being aluminum versus steel on the 300E, the machines are, from what I understand, basically identical in terms of the parts and everything. So we received the 300E and in parts, in boxes, basically, at your location, and it didn't take us very long, really, to put the machine together.
10 minutes, 12 minutes.
Yeah,
and
it
was literally just assembling the carriage and then putting the turret, the carousel, on top of the machine. The rest of it was fully assembled.
Right. Now, I came over and helped you do that, but do you think that's something that a person could do on their own?
Oh, absolutely.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that you can do it, is you have to be a little bit careful about how you do it, is putting the machine onto the carriage, just lifting it up. It's a lot easier with two people, but one person could physically do it if that was all you had available. You just have to kind of step it up onto a couple of 2x4s and walk it onto it, but it's very durable.
Right.
You know, if you hadn't been there, that's how I planned on doing it.
Okay. So we're going to talk today about the 300E. This is a 2015 300E. There are some slight changes that MEC is going to do for 2016 that we can probably talk about a little bit. But basically, we're really just going to compare the 300E against what we have been using traditionally here is the Promatic Ranger. And we'll talk about basically some of the things that are similar, but also some of the things that are different in a lot of the design features here of the 300E. So let's talk about the 300E, things we like about it. First off, I would say, in terms of the 300E, is that it has a stainless steel table and a stainless steel throwing platform. So the table is this piece here and the throwing platform is this. It's all stainless steel. The carousel is also stainless steel, even though you can't see it. The carousel is stainless steel underneath. They use an e-coat process for corrosion resistance, and then they powder coat over on top of that. The rest of the machine, in terms of coating, the main frame here again, which is steel, is powder coated. The trailer here is e-coated and then powder coated also, very similar to the carousel. But the main advantage of the stainless steel is that you'll see this a lot with the bio-targets, is that the bio-targets will corrode the throwing surface of the machines, which we've seen on here, quite a few of ours, to the point that it becomes very rough. But the other thing that's really interesting here, also thing that MEC has done, is they've installed a counterbalance on the throwing arm. This, to me, is a brilliant design idea. It was kind of interesting. I was reading an article about MEC, and they had commented about one of the main things that MEC can do is, since they're fabricators, they can come up with different design ideas and then apply them immediately to see how they work. I was talking to Simon about this, and what their original intent here of the counterbalance on the arm was to reduce target breakage. The idea was with the counterbalance on the arm there, that the motion of the arm as it's triggered will be a lot smoother as opposed to without the counterbalance. And Simon has told me that that with the counterbalance on there, that it has definitely reduced the number of broken birds that they've had. But he said the other interesting side effect was that it also ends up throwing the birds slightly further than what it does without the counterbalance, which I thought was also very interesting. And again, that kind of makes sense, because from the standpoint of the arm coming around, it's not a very quick accelerated motion, it's more of a linear motion, and when it hits the bird, it's more of a smooth transition on the bird. And you had commented that possibly the wobbling of the bird may be the difference there.
Right, it definitely is a very smooth throwing machine, and anything that causes the machine itself to jerk around is wasted energy.
Right.
Because something had to create the force to move it. And so if you're transferring the most amount of energy into the clay target, but doing it smoothly, is definitely to the advantage of the energy transfer.
The other thing that's really interesting about the counterbalance is that in terms of balancing the arm out, you now have effectively a mass on both sides of the main bearing shaft here via the mass of the arm itself and then the counterbalance. And because of that, when the arm trips, you basically have equal weight around the center pivot point. You don't have any G-forces or any excessive G-forces in perpendicular directions relative to the main bearing to cause wear. And the reason I bring that up is that we have two Promatics now that have had main bearings fail. The Promatic over here, same main bearing assembly here, but you can see here there is no counterbalance in that arm, and we've had two different main bearings now fail on the Promatics, and I'm thinking that counterbalance definitely has to be an improvement from that standpoint of eliminating G-forces on that main bearing.
Certainly got to have some input to it.
Right.
On the note of the main bearing, something I would like to see on both machines, two different things. One, I would like to have some way of lubricating the bearings, because let's face it, we live in the Pacific Northwest, and it rains and rains. And it rains and rains and rains again. It took several weeks before, actually a couple months before we could film this episode, just because of the inclement weather. And as you can see, it's overcast now, but at least we're dry. So not having the ability to lubricate those bearings without doing a major disassembly is a disadvantage. On that note, something I would like to see both manufacturers also do is separate your throwing arm bearing housing here, rather than having it welded to. If this was attached to a plate and the plate was bolted, then all you would have to do is take your tension off of your mainspring and take the nut here out and drop this whole assembly out. And then if you had to replace the bearings, it's an easy function rather than disassembling it on the machine. They both have similar designs, so I mean, it would work. The same idea concept would work for both machines. I think it would be a product improvement for them. Another area that's different on the machines is on the Promatic. Your your spring arm is actually welded to the shaft that the throwing arm is attached to. If you'll notice on the MEC, it's on a clamp up. So it's not permanently affixed, which probably makes disassembly easier, but I don't know that. I haven't taken this machine apart. I've had the Promatics apart. So like I said, I noticed this as a difference, but how it's going to be for servicing, I can't speak of.
Now, when you mentioned that to Simon, he said something about it looked like they may be going forward with the bolt-on.
They're on some of their other machines. They're already doing that as a design change. Whether or not they'll extend that across their product line, I don't know.
Right.
He definitely said that they were looking at it, but they'd already identified that as a potential product improvement. But I would like to just give that out to both manufacturers, because they both stress again, these are both great machines. We're focusing on the MEC because it's the new one to us.
Right.
But Promatic builds a great machine.
Well, let's look at real quick also at the control box here and the motor. The control box, which is kind of interesting here I'm just going to kick this over real quick so you can see it on the MEC, is made out of metal versus the plastic control box that you have on the Promatic. And one of the reasons that they pointed out in doing this is that when the machines are left out in the sun, in the heat, the UV will eventually end up cracking or can degrade the plastic boxes. So they went to a full metal box. The thing that's also interesting is that rather than being held on by screws, it's being held on by standard battery post wing nuts here. The point being is that, if something fails or whatever, and you need to get inside the control box, you don't need to have a screwdriver to go off and be able to open it. And secondly, if you drop the screws and lose them, these are commonly available down at your hardware store as standard wing nuts. The other interesting thing in terms of the MEC box is that they use a circuit breaker rather than a fuse for the main control. And also the relay can be plugged in and unplugged simply by plugging into a socket versus having to unscrew it. So it makes things a little bit faster there in terms of if you do have to get inside the box. I like the idea of a circuit breaker. Do you know, Dave, on the Promatic, are they still using a fuse, or are they using
They're using a fuse.
They are using a fuse.
Yeah, so there's a 30 amp fuse inside of it.
Yeah. So a breaker, in my opinion, is definitely the way to go with respect to that. Because if it blows, you just trip it and you're up and running again.
Right.
And
We've only had to replace one fuse on them, and it was on the machine that the bearing's locked up on. Of course, the fuse blew to protect the motor, just as it was designed to do.
Right. So the other thing I really like about on the MEC here is the adjustability of it, and I refer to this as infinitely adjustable. In terms of being able to adjust the machine, they have the main handle here for tilt, which I can show you. And pull that back, and I can tilt it fully up, fully down, and then anywhere in between, and lock it into place. The same thing is true here for lateral motion. So I undo the front handle, the back handle, then I can adjust it anywhere I want to go here in terms of that motion. And again, lock it down. If you compare that to the MEC has basically fixed pins, which are very fast. You pull a pin out, you adjust it up, you adjust it down. The problem is that, as an example, let's say I'm here, this is my one position, next position is there, but let's say I want to be right here. Well, I can't do that. And there have been numerous times where you're throwing this thing and you've got a tree right in a particular position.
I'm trying to thread it through a hole.
You're trying to thread it through a hole, and one position is either too far to the right or too high, or whatever the case is, and the other one is too far the other way, and your only recourse is going out and putting something under one of the wheels. You got to go out and you've got to find a log or a block or a stump, or just basically anything to prop up either the tail or prop up the wheel. And it sounds like a minor thing, but it's a hassle that you've got to go out and find something to adjust, get that little bit adjustment that you're looking for. With the MEC, you don't have that problem because of the fact that it's really, you can adjust this thing anywhere in between,
anywhere within its range.
Right.
There's a lot of courses that probably wouldn't matter. We're a wooded area. If you're out in the open area where you weren't as constrained as we are, that may not be as a big a factor, but in our case, it definitely adds versatility and quickens the setup.
So the other thing that's also interesting is the cart or the trailer design. As you can see here, first off, the size of the wheels is dramatically different, and these are these are run flat tires?
They're foam-filled tires, but they have some give to them, as opposed to the MECs, which are a hard rubber tire. And on our Batu machines, you cannot move the Batus with any targets in it, or you're going to lose a lot of them. You have to unload the targets because the hard rubber tires bounce over any bit of gravel. We don't have paved roads for these things to be transported on. We are moving them through the woods and along gravel paths, and so they're not particularly smooth, and they're very jarring on the clay bird. So definitely advantage with the difference in the wheels between the two carts.
Yeah, it is definitely much easier to move this machine around compared to the Promatics in just terms of just picking it up and moving it. But the other thing that's really interesting here is the width or the track of the cart or the trailer can be adjusted. So you can bring the wheels in, you can move the wheels out. Now the interesting point there is that you can bring the wheels in for basically transport. So if you have like a trailer or something like that you're having to move a lot of machines on, you can bring all the wheels in and you can pack a lot more of the machines on a trailer. But the other nice thing is that you can then move the wheels out, and the time that really becomes beneficial is that if you have the machine fully cranked over, fully loaded, a lot of birds in it, and there's a lot of weight basically hanging off one way or the other on the machine. We've had problems before in the Promatics. It hasn't happened a lot, but it has happened twice, where there was so much weight, top end weight, because of the birds that it caused the machine to tip over. That's not a problem that you're going to run into here with this, because of the fact that you can just slide the wheel out, increase the track of it to counterbalance or counter offset the weight of the carriage.
On that note, I've actually been kind of kicking around building a cart for a couple of our machines, in particular our auto sporters, that the carts that they came with are less than ideal, I would say, and use for the cross axle a piece of tubing and have the carriage plate sit on saddles, so it literally could move back and forth across that tubing, and maybe make it more simplified, where you just have a couple of U-bolts that lock it on that tube, and you just move it back and forth as required. So you always, when you're kicked over that way, you can slide the machine that way and have more axle on this side, or vice versa. So there's another idea to the manufacturers if they want to go that direction.
So one of the other things also here is on the battery box location that they've done here with the MEC is that the battery box tray here can be unbolted and flipped around to the other side over here if you want to counterbalance it that way, which makes it helpful in terms of trying to balance a machine. One thing I will give to Promatic, though, in terms of something that they're doing, which I wish MEC would do, is the battery terminals here. So the battery terminals that MEC gives you or provides with the machine are standard battery terminals that you would have on a car. And what I just do is I kind of push them on and turn them and kind of grind them in to make contact, and it works okay. But if you look here, the Promatic uses basically a speed connector that just clamps on and is very quick, very fast on, very fast off. So I will give Promatic the benefits on that one of doing something, making it right, or much, in my opinion, better. But Dave, you pointed out those connectors are not cheap.
No, they're not cheap. Yeah. But I'm looking at trying to find something that kind of gives us the biggest bang for the buck. It kind of does the best of both worlds for some of our other machines, so that we can have quick clamps on it that don't tear up the battery post, because some people are using just standard alligator clamps. But I'm looking at, and I haven't ordered them yet, but it looks like from the pictures I've seen, a alligator clamp that's curved, that's smooth on the inside, so so it can hold on. It has a lot of surface contact, so you should get good
conduction,
good conductivity. And they're not that expensive, so I'm going to order some up and we'll try them out, see whether or not that kind of gives us a less expensive than the quick clamps they're using, but gives us some advantages over the automotive style that we have on the MEC machine.
So I was going to say, speaking of connectors, the other thing that we were really happy to see is that MEC has gone to the same 110 connector that we use everywhere. Well, actually, what we did is we went to. Yeah, I was going to say. In reality, it was we stole the idea from them, not them stealing the idea from us. So just to set the record straight. But the Promatic comes with their own proprietary connector on it.
Right.
And the MECs come with a standard. I'm just going to call it a 110 connector on it. The nice thing about the 110 connectors is that you can basically make your own extension cords because you can just go to the store and get an extension cord and plug it in, and you're off and running. With the Promatics, you have to use. Well, I don't know what you end up using there. Do they have extension cables that you can buy?
Well, you could, I'm sure that they do, or you buy the ends and build them up yourself, or you do what we did, which was just take their pull cord, and I literally just cut it and put a standard 110 connector on it. So I've changed nothing on their machine. It's exactly the way it shipped from the factory. It's just the, so I didn't void the warranty on the machine. I might have voided the warranty on the pull cord, but the machine is exactly the way it came. But then everything is interchangeable because we had 5 different types of connectors with the different machines that we had, and that was not doable. So we needed to go to convert to a single standard. And the way we coded these things is with the male and female, so you can't plug this into a wall
accidentally.
So it's I mean, when you plug this into the wall and press the button, you're gonna pop a circuit breaker. But you can't reverse power these things with 120 volt AC.
So that was, I think that was a definite, good decision on MEC's standpoint of doing that. And also we, followed suit basically doing it to all of our machines. And then on all of our delay boxes, we've done the exact same thing in terms of the connectors on that. So it works out very, very well.
One of the good things is, you can run down to any hardware store and get a replacement if something goes.
And the other thing is, the extension cables that we have sometimes set machines out where they're, over 100 yards out in the field that you're throwing a bird in from. And the cords are, about 150 feet at most, which leaves you short. So, you just throw an extension cord or 2 on there, and you're right to the machine. So, it works out very well. So enough talking. Let's actually see the machines in action here. So let's get this thing flattened out here, and first off, we'll see how smooth the MEC is, and then we'll put these things to their extremes and see how they do.
What we ought to do is take the pitch and match it to the Promatic, just because the MEC has got the more infinite adjustable. Just as a good comparison.
Okay. So I'm at 16 degrees.
Got your
21 degrees, 23 degrees. I tell you what, if you want to, I'll undo it, you hold it.
Okay,
ready?
Yep.
You got it?
Yep.
All right, back, right there. Okay, 23. 23.
Okay. So there's a good starting point.
So the only difference really now is spring tension.
Right. So now we haven't balanced these two out as far as spring tension, so let's be perfectly straight up with that. It just kind of gives an idea what.
Oh yeah. Ready?
Yep.
Go.
Well, the distance is about the same, although
it's
interesting that the MEC was looked to be higher.
It looked like it was higher, but let's try one more. Ready? Go.
Well, that time it was almost identical.
Yeah. So just to get a feel here for how smooth the MEC is relative to the Promatic here, I'm just going to fire off 3 birds here real quick, and you can see how just in terms of sound, but you can just kind of see how smooth it is. So here we go. And then compare that to the Promatic.
Hang on a sec.
So what I'm noticing here, which is interesting, is notice how the table jiggles.
I did.
Yeah, I mean the MEC is jiggling much less than the Promatic is.
I would think
that's the counterbalance.
Well, I would think it would be not only the counterbalance, but I would also think you would get a better consistency for the trajectory of the clay that way, because any kind of movement in that table is going to impact something on the clay.
Right.
I mean, haven't exactly gone out there and measured it and proved it and everything else like that, but just looking at it, I would certainly expect that.
So you want to do a speed test?
On 3?
On 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
So in cycle rate, the MEC, and that battery just came off the charger, and it's a higher capacity, so the MEC has got it definitely just a little bit faster. It's not extreme, but it is a little faster.
Yeah, definitely. So basically you can see the two machines compare very similarly. Again, there are certain things that MEC has done here, I would say, that are improvement over the Promatic. But I think two really key important points here, or final points I'd like to make. One, the the MEC is made here in the United States, made by U.S. employees here in the U.S. versus the Promatic, which comes from the U.K. The other thing is that the MEC is about $700 cheaper than the Promatic. So for similar machines, this one, in terms of initial cost of ownership, is going to be cheaper, and in the long haul, because of the parts, will also probably end up being cheaper. The other nice thing that MEC has done or taken into consideration is that they've used a lot of the same parts that the Promatics use. So the gearboxes, the motors, and whatnot. If you have a large, supply of replacement parts for your Promatics, there's a good chance that they will also work on the MEC machines. So basically, that's it. We're very favorably impressed here by the MEC here at our club, and if I was going to venture a guess, I was probably going to say that we will probably switch over to all MECs in the future here. I really think that the value for the dollar is really high with the MEC machines compared to the Promatics. We really like what we see, and I think MEC has a new customer now here, at least at our club. So again, want to thank Mickey and Simon for allowing us the opportunity to test the trap here on the range, doing a side-by-side comparison to the Promatic. I want to thank you, the viewers, for taking the time to watch this, and we hope to see you in the future. Again, if you have any questions for us, email is powerfactorshow@gmail.com. You can comment on the Facebook page at facebook.com/powerfactorshow. And as always, the website is powerfactorshow.com. Anyway, again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.